You'd think it would be a matter on which everyone of both parties could agree. What happened at the Capitol on January 6th was abhorrent, and Congress should do everything it can to investigate it and take action to keep anything like it from ever happening again. And some Republicans and Democrats have been able to come together to draft a bipartisan proposal for a commission to look into the insurrection, which at the time of this taping, the House was just about to pass. All Democrats and some members of the GOP were expected to support it. But there are prominent GOP holdouts, including Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, his counterpart in the Senate, where at least 10 Republicans will need to sign on for a filibuster-proof majority, also moved into the no column, amazingly, or maybe not, less than 12 hours after Donald Trump expressed his disapproval. Here's McConnell.
After careful consideration, I've made the decision to oppose the House Democrats' slanted and unbalanced proposal for another commission to study the events of January the 6th.
As for would-be Speaker Kevin McCarthy, he said in a statement yesterday, quote, "Given the Speaker's short-sighted scope that does not examine interrelated forms of political violence in America, I cannot support this legislation." And it's not his first flip-flop on Trump. Here he is a week after the deadly assault, then 3 months later.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding. These facts require immediate action by President Trump. Accept his share of responsibility.
I was the first person to contact him when the riots was going on. He didn't see it. What he ended the call was telling me he'll put something out to make sure to stop this. And that's what he did. He put a video out later. I engaged in the idea of making sure we could stop what was going on inside the Capitol at that moment in time. The president said he would help.
That was the same guy both times, by the way. I'm now joined by the chair of the House Rules Committee, Worcester Congressman Jim McGovern. Congressman, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Great to be with you.
Now, it appeared that Kevin McCarthy was for a bipartisan commission before he wasn't. What happened?
I think Donald Trump got to him. Kevin McCarthy is spineless. He's a coward. Quite frankly, he's unfit for a leadership position. And I mean, to come out against it after he sent a letter to Pelosi saying, you know, these are the conditions that need to be met for me to support a commission, and almost every single one of these items has been met. He wanted a 50-50 split between Democrats and Republicans. He got it. Mm-hmm. He wanted equal subpoena power. He got it. I mean, all the things he requested, he received. He couldn't take yes for an answer. So, I mean, he's afraid of Donald Trump. A lot of Republicans are afraid of Donald Trump, and they're going to vote against this commission.
When he says, and I think the thing they've been hiding behind the last couple of days, and some of your colleagues in the House have been reading similar remarks that appear like hostage videos, that it's not broad enough. It's too narrowly focused on January 6th. The Republicans say, or some Republicans say, particularly leaders, it should be broadened to look at other violence that we lived through over the past summer. Are they right or are they wrong?
Well, first of all, there's nothing that limits the commission from looking into any violence that might be related to what happened on January 6th. So they have wide latitude. But what the Republicans are now asking for is that we should investigate Black Lives Matter, that we should investigate, you know, any act of violence that has occurred, you know, not just recently, but they want to go back years. What they don't want to do is they don't want to face the truth, because the truth is that Donald Trump pushed a big lie and urged violence on the Capitol. We had an insurrection. People died. People were wounded. It was an attack on our democracy. I mean, I was there that day. I was the last person off the House floor. They don't want to deal with the reality, and you know, and it really is pathetic.
You know, occasionally I say to myself, well, I can understand taking a position that is contrary to I don't know, fact or reality or something, but flip-flopping almost overnight, to me, is borderline humiliating. Does this surprise you, even in this environment, that somebody like Kevin McCarthy, again, who hopes to be Speaker in the beginning of 2023, can do this with apparently no shame?
Yeah, I mean, it is surprising on one level, but then it's not, because this is not the first time Kevin McCarthy has flip-flopped because Donald Trump told him to flip-flop. I mean, the bottom line is this is why people hate Washington. I mean, there's lots of calls on both sides for bipartisanship. This was truly bipartisan. The Democrat who chairs the Homeland Security Committee and the ranking Republican both agreed that this is a good compromise. This is a good bill. Everybody agrees with it. And all of a sudden, Kevin McCarthy comes out against it because Donald Trump issues a statement saying, "I'm watching you, Kevin." That's what you call spinelessness. Look, compare that to Liz Cheney, who actually had the guts to stand up and say, "I'm not going to embrace the big lie." I mean, she at least has some character. The minority leader lacks character, and it's really sad to watch. And by the way, this is not just about the Republican Party. This is about the country. And I said on the floor today that every member ought to vote for this commission out of respect for this institution and out of respect for the people who work here. Our staff members were traumatized. The people who worked in the cafeteria were traumatized by what happened here today. And we have some Republican members walking around saying, "Oh, what happened on January 6th was really nothing." Those same members, by the way, have photographs of them, barricading the doors because they were afraid for their lives. But now they're saying, "Oh, nothing really happened. It was just a normal day of tourism here in D.C."
Can we stay on my incredulousness, if that's a word, just for a second? I was reading the Washington Post right before you joined me, Congressman McGovern, and I saw that one of the no votes will be a guy by the name of Pence from Indiana. He has a brother who was the vice president of the United States, and if I remember correctly, some of the insurrectionists on January 6th were holding signs saying,
right,
"Hang Mike Pence."
Yeah.
We're chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." And his brother is going to vote against a commission to investigate the actions of that day.
It is unbelievable because, as you point out, those protesters were here not just to harm Democrats, they wanted to hang the Vice President of the United States. Look, what's happened now is McCarthy has made this a party line vote. He's whipping this. He's having his whip organization say the leadership wants you to vote no. And so we'll find out, how many profiles and courage there are, how many people, can locate their spine. But, I've cast a lot of tough votes in my life, but a commission to investigate an insurrection that is totally bipartisan is not a tough vote. This is a no-brainer. And the fact that they're afraid to even vote for this, it tells you, how far they've fallen.
Are Republicans in the Senate going to be afraid to vote for this? As I said, you need 10 of them in addition to all 50 Democrats, assuming they are there. 7 voted to convict the president in the second impeachment trial. But Mitch McConnell has, I was going to say ruled, has determined a position. Now, do they get to 10?
Yeah, I hope they do. But I was listening to the clip you just played about with Mitch McConnell when he talked about this as a partisan maneuver. I showed you the letter that Kevin McCarthy wrote the speaker. I mean, we met all those demands. What the hell is he talking about? I mean, they got everything they wanted. This is a totally bipartisan, equally divided commission with equal subpoena power. There are no politicians on this panel. These are going to be experts, but not politicians. I mean, if this is not bipartisan and considered bipartisan, I don't know what the hell would be.
Jim McGovern, you've mentioned some of the people. Marjorie Taylor Greene, that congressman from Georgia who said January 6th was like any tourist visit to the Capitol. The ouster of Liz Cheney. I mean, I can go on and on down the list. How do you end this cult of Trump, this embrace of fiction and lies? How do you fix something that is so thoroughly broken?
I think the American people are going to ultimately have to fix it. I thought, the last election would have helped fix it when, Donald Trump was responsible not only for losing the presidency, but for losing the House and the Senate for Republicans. I thought that would have been a wake-up call. But it may take another election. And that's why Republicans are working overtime to pass voter suppression laws and spreading all these conspiracy theories. But people are going to have to be engaged. People are going to have to be as intense about these midterm elections as they were about the last presidential election. because the Republican Party is no longer a conservative party. They become the party of QAnon and conspiracy theories. They embrace Marjorie Taylor Greene rather than distance themselves from her. And they see there's political advantage in doing that. And it's really sad to watch. As I said, this is not just an issue for Republicans. This is an issue for our country. When a major party engages in embracing conspiracy theories on a regular basis, when they can't even bring themselves to vote for a bipartisan commission that's truly bipartisan to look into an insurrection, an attack on this democracy, then this is really a sad day. The American people are going to have to be engaged and demand that they not be rewarded for this kind of behavior.
I think it was yesterday, 62 Republicans voted, talk about an easy vote. 62 Republicans in the House voted against a measure on its way to the president's desk condemning anti-Asian hate and doing something about it. Can you give me an explanation for those 62 or no?
Look, we have bigots and racists who are in Congress. I mean, the same people who are defending those who walked around the Capitol on January 6th with Confederate flags, with T-shirts that said Camp Auschwitz, embracing anti-Semitism. I mean, this is who they are. And what is really stunning to me is that the leadership of the Republican Party in the House, the establishment, if you will, of the Republican Party in the House, can't bring themselves to distance themselves and their party from these from these extremists. It really is sad.
Chairman McGovern, before you go, I want to touch for 2 minutes on the topic you have been an unrivaled leader on for your time in Congress, combating hunger in the United States. We know how food insecurity has exploded across the country during the pandemic, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 million people in Massachusetts. As soon as I say goodbye to you, I'm going to be joined by the city manager of Chelsea and the head of the Shaw Family Foundation that helped fund something called Chelsea Eats, which was a guaranteed income program, roughly up to $400 a month for 2,000 residents of Chelsea, covering 12 to 15% of the population. That's a pretty big sample, I should say. Harvard just came out with a study at the beginning of May saying virtually all the money was spent on necessities, 75% almost on food, on groceries, etc. Is that something, a guaranteed income proposal of that magnitude, that might be added to your arsenal of anti-hunger agenda items?
Yes. In fact, as chairman of the Rules Committee, we don't have any jurisdictional boundaries, so I've decided to hold a series of hearings over the next few months, not just in Washington, but across the country, highlighting what works in communities, listening to people with lived experiences, figuring out ways for us to not manage hunger, but solve it. And the ultimate goal is to get President Biden to do a White House conference on food, nutrition, and hunger. We haven't had one of those for 52 years. So we're building a volume of information for the White House. But what's happening in Chelsea is one of those things we're going to be looking at, and I expect that we'll call them to testify at one of our hearings.
And before you go, in the last 45 seconds, I mean, it seems to me, I don't know if they think this, in part it's modeled, even if not intentionally, on this child tax credit that you guys in the House champion, as did Joe Biden, that lifts more than half of the kids of this country out of poverty with direct payments to almost 90% of American families with kids, no?
Yeah, absolutely. It is, and I think it is a model that I certainly support, but we need to amplify it. I mean, again, there are good things happening in communities all across this country and in cities and towns that have been experimenting with different approaches that have had good results. What we need to do is see whether they can be applicable nationwide. Can we do this, all across the country? Look, we have 45 million Americans who are hungry, who don't know where the next meal is going to come from. We live in the richest country in the history of the world. We should all be ashamed of that. And so what we're trying to do in the Rules Committee is to kind of elevate the issue, create a sense of urgency, and get the White House, because we need White House leadership on this to basically steer this ship to a comprehensive, holistic solution to end hunger once and for all.
Jim McGovern, thanks for your work and thanks for your time. Be well.
All the best. Thank you.